Okay, so where we left off, we were talking about crossing over and how it's the exchange of pieces of non-sister chromatids. That means a chromatid from one chromosome, in this case the blue one, switches places and it switches different pieces of it by crossing over and folding over with the sister chromatid from the red chromosome. So they're from two different chromosomes. And by doing that, what you end up with is, okay, if we didn't have crossing over, I want you to look at the chromatid number 2 and 4 of the daughter chromosomes. So the combinations of genes that we would have, and we don't know what these genes represent or what these traits are for, but we know that there's a gene capital A, capital B, capital C, capital D. And then there's another version of the same gene for A, but it's a little a. So that just means there are two different versions of that gene. Maybe like brown hair, brown hair, blonde hair kind of thing, you know. So there would be a chromosome that had big A, big B, big C, big D alleles for traits, and then there would be one that had little a, little b, little c, little d. But because of crossing over, we also have this combination, big A, big B, little c, big D. And then we also have combination number 3, which is little a, little b, big C, little d. So it just gives us more genetic variety. So even if that's kind of hard to understand, just remember that crossing over occurs during prophase 1, and it gives us more genetic variety than if crossing over did not happen. The other process or event during meiosis that gives us genetic variation is called independent assortment. Independent assortment is when homologous chromosome pairs line up at the metaphase plate and they separate in a random manner. The way that they line up and orient themselves is random. Okay, so for every pair, one came from the mom and one came from the dad. So the dad's chromosomes don't always have to line up on the left side. Sometimes they line up on the right side. You know, same for the mom. They don't have to line up in the same exact way for every pair. So the possible chromosome orientations for a cell that has 3 pairs of homologous chromosomes, the way you'd figure that is you'd say 2, because that means we have 2 of each chromosome, to the 3rd power, and that comes out to be 8. So there would be 8 different combinations of the mom and dad's chromosomes. And if that's hard to understand, it's a good thing we have a picture, right? So if we have 3 pairs of homologous chromosomes, that means we have 6 total chromosomes. And we'll say the blue come from the dad and the red from the mom. All right, so if all the paternal or father's chromosomes lined up on the left, this would be combination 1 would be a possible orientation. And what that would show us is that the gametes that form, the egg and the sperm, would get either all 3 from the father or all 3 from the mother. But in combination 2, the first 2 pairs, the top 2 pairs, are lining up the same way, but the bottom pair is lining up now with the mother's chromosome, the maternal chromosome, on the left. So that's a different combination. There's a different combination of how they line up in combination 3, combination 4, combination 5, combination 6, combination 7, and combination 8. So if there's 8 possible combinations due to independent assortment, when you only have 3 pairs of chromosomes, imagine how many there would be because you have 23 pairs. So you would do the same math. So what's highlighted here, and I want to be very clear with you because you're going to see a lot of numbers on this slide and the next slide. I want to make sure that you understand what these numbers mean because it can be confusing. So this number, this 8,388,608, that is the number of possible chromosome combinations that you would see in humans with 23 pairs of chromosomes. That's the number of possible combinations that you could get. And that is if there is not any crossing over at all. Okay? So this is going to be in the combinations that you're going to get before the gametes form. Okay, so it would be like just the same situation, but instead of there being 3 pairs, imagine that this is 23 pairs. So instead of this number being 8, it's going to be over 8 million. Okay, just letting you know the independent assortment leads to a large amount of genetic variety. But then we have to take into account what happens when the sperm and the egg unite. So we've already got this variation in the male gamete or the sperm, and all of this variation in the female gamete or the egg. Now, when they come together and make and the sperm fertilizes the egg and we get a zygote, all right, this is what the variation would be in humans with no crossing over due to fertilization. And this is what, million, billion, trillion, 70 trillion, over 70 trillion variations in the zygotes, 70 trillion different zygotes without crossing over. And then if there is crossing over just one time, and that's not even realistic because crossing over tends to happen several times in each chromosome. But if we just have one crossing over event, just once, there's crossing over, that increases this number from 70 trillion to whatever this is, because I don't know what this number even is. I wouldn't know how to say it. This is million, billion, trillion. I don't even know the rest of them. You know, zillion, gazillion, I don't know. It's huge. It's a huge number. It's well, whatever it is, it's 4 to the 23rd power squared. So it would be 4 to the 46th power. And that's just too big to even imagine. The point is, we get so much genetic variety just because of crossing over. I mean, it's so much more than what you even get. You get a lot of variety with no crossing over, but look at how much more when crossing over happens. So all this to say that the 2 ways that we get genetic variety is crossing over and independent assortment. And both of these things happen. Crossing over happens in prophase 1 of meiosis, and independent assortment happens in prophase 1 and metaphase 1. Because it's the way they line up in metaphase 1, really. Whether the father's paternal chromosome is on the left or whether the maternal chromosome is on the left. Okay, so we get a lot of genetic variety during meiosis, which is the reason for it. Okay, so now we're going to go into the phases of meiosis. And when we learned mitosis, we did a phase between prophase and metaphase. So we did prophase, prometaphase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and then cytokinesis. But now we're just going to blend prophase all into one, and we're just going to say, we're going to do, for meiosis 1, we're going to have prophase 1, metaphase 1, anaphase 1, and telophase 1. And then we'll do the same thing with meiosis 2. So these are the notes that tell you what happens during prophase 1. And some of these are the same things that happen in mitosis prophase. The spindle forms, the nuclear envelope fragments, the nucleolus disappears, the chromosomes become visible. They condense. They were in the form called chromatin. Now they're condensed and we can see them. They're visible. But these 2 events that are listed in purple, they happen together. They happen at the same time. These 2 events happen in prophase 1, and these are unique to meiosis. Okay, synapsis is when the homologous pairs match up. And when they match up, now there's going to be 2 chromosomes. So they can be called a bivalent, Or because each chromosome has 2 sister chromatids, that would be a total of 4 chromatids. We can also not only refer to those homologous pairs as a bivalent, but also as a tetrad for 4. Okay, so homologous pairs, bivalent, and tetrad all mean the same thing. And they form during synapsis. Synapsis is when the pairs find each other. And then crossing over happens during synapsis, because the non-sister chromatids can exchange pieces, can exchange genes with each other. So all of this happens in prophase 1. In metaphase 1, this is pretty simple. The homologous pairs line up at the metaphase plate. So what we were used to seeing in mitosis is just individual chromosomes lined up single file. Now we're going to see pairs of chromosomes lined up, okay? And this is also the time when independent assortment occurs. The way that they line up, the order they line up in, is independent assortment. And both of these events, independent assortment and crossing over, that happen during meiosis 1, are ways to increase genetic variation. All right, anaphase 1 is a separation, but it's not, sister chromatids do not separate. That's what happened in mitosis. But in anaphase 1, it's the homologous chromosome pairs that separate from one another. And at the end of anaphase 1, we're going to end up with chromosome number being reduced from diploid to haploid. Then in telophase 1, we have 2 daughter cells, and each daughter cell has 1 duplicated chromosome from each homologous pair. We're going to have a period called interkinesis. It's not interphase, it's interkinesis. It's shorter than interphase, and it does not involve DNA replication. Now we're going to move from meiosis 1 to meiosis 2. And remember that at the beginning of meiosis 2, we have 2 cells that are going to go through this process, because 2 cells formed at the end of meiosis 1. So prophase 2, metaphase 2, anaphase 2, telophase 2, all of that is going to be the same as mitosis. In prophase 2, the chromosomes are going to condense, so they'll be visible. In metaphase 2, they will line up single file. They're no longer in pairs. They will line up single file at the metaphase plate. In anaphase 2, the sister chromatids will separate instead of homologous pairs separating. In telophase 2, we will end up with 4 haploid cells. And then this is a picture of meiosis 1 on the left side in blue, and meiosis 2 over here in this cream color. Okay, so meiosis 1, we have prophase. Remember that the homologous pairs match up, that's synapsis. In metaphase 1, we have the homologous pairs lining up instead of lining up single file. So the homologous pairs line up at the metaphase plate. The homologous pairs separate in anaphase 1, and then in telophase 1, we have 2 chromosomes in each daughter cell, okay, instead of 4. There were 4 in the original parent cell. DNA replicates. Now we have 4 at the beginning of prophase 1, that 4 duplicated chromosomes at the beginning of prophase 1, and then by the end of telophase 1, we have only 2 chromosomes in each daughter cell. Now, those 2 daughter cells are going to begin meiosis 2. So we have 2 daughter cells that are each going to divide, and they're going to undergo the same steps that we learned in mitosis. So each daughter cell has 2 chromosomes each. In metaphase, the 2 chromosomes line up at the metaphase plate, single file. In anaphase, the sister chromatids separate. And then after telophase and cytokinesis, each of the daughter cells, and there will be 4 daughter cells, and they will each have 2 chromosomes each, and those chromosomes will just consist of 1 sister chromatid. And this is these slides just show the same thing, just one at a time. I like looking at them together. All right, comparing meiosis to mitosis. Meiosis requires two